Bum. What's the word I'm thinking of? Why can't I think of it right now? It is the shiprock. Shiprock. There we go. Out to shiprock. All right. So looks like I am live, and we are going to be going live here in about. Oh, that is a duplicate Aaron. Let's turn off duplicate Aaron, but the audio sounds good. It might be a little too loud again. How's it going on loud? Those of you who are with me live right now, the early arrivers. I was hoping for something that was close. You said east, huh? Not west. I'm telling you everything west. Yeah, right there. Go to the White Sands. Go to White Sands National Park. White Sands is your best option. There's also other options, but I know that White Sands are great. I was hoping for something that was close to the Texas border. I don't know what is there. Yeah, the White Sands National Park is close to the border over there by Albuquerque. And other places I don't know of myself, but I know that there's some great water feature areas with birds that people famously go down for, and whether that works for the Milky Way, I can't speak to it, but hopefully. Bill Vincent's here. Hey, welcome in. So I am going to give you guys some videos today to get going into the episode, and I'll let you start with a quick lesson about how I use Planet and Google Earth to plan a shot of a space that I have never been before. So enjoy this, and I'll see you when we go live. Okay, welcome to Owl's Head Lighthouse, and this lighthouse is a much different challenge. It is a squatty, short, very small lighthouse. So here I am looking at the Milky Way, then the lighthouse, then the Milky Way, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I'm going to have to figure out how tall that squatty little lighthouse is. So I search it. Owl's Head Lighthouse. And just in a quick search, you're going to see that I can find the Wikipedia page, and most likely the Wikipedia page, because the nerds that filled that out have the height of the actual lighthouse. So I scan it real quick, and instantly I see it. Wow, there's the sentence. It is a 30-foot tall cylindrical brick tower. Okay, a cylinder of 30 feet. Perfect. Easy. Let's go back into Planet and add that. So I go back into the view of the planner kind of view, the PhotoPills planner kind of look, and from the top down, and I make sure I put that little gray circle over my subject on the satellite view. I'm going to go to add marker. So instead of going into, say, add a scene or a camera location, I'm adding a new marker. And this I'm going to rename as Owl's Head Lighthouse. I'm going to give it a color. I'm going to give it dimensions. So first, I choose purple as the color, and now the height, 30 feet tall. Well, what is the width going to be? One quick way for me to guess my width is I look at how the circle is created on the actual view top down. You notice that that circle is that small. If I change the width to something like, let's try something first, 20 feet. 20. Yep, here we go. And commit that with the arrow at the checkbox at the top right. And I look at that circle and I was like, well, that wasn't too bad. It was kind of big compared to it. So I go back in, commit it, and now I see that circle, it's hard to read, but that circle is now the size of that black circle that's already there on the satellite. So that is enough for me to go, okay, that's most likely a really good guess. That's a good starting point. Now I see a rectangle. It's actually a cylinder with a flat top and a flat bottom, but you can't tell it's a cylinder because there's no shading on it. And so now that rectangular white purple lined square is representing Owl's Head from standing exactly where I was. So I took a screenshot of that. I'm like, okay, maybe I like that. And so you can see where I'm in kind of the edge of the trees. What if I go closer? Okay, I'm in the trees right there. The bushes most likely have tree branches blocking my view, if I can even walk back there. So we go to the edge of what I'm assuming might be the edge of it. All right, okay. Not only am I much closer to the lighthouse that's blocking my view to the top of my frame, it's completely overlapping the core. So that's not going to work from there. I can't do this location. So then I got to think, okay, let me move off to the right a little bit more. Move my camera over here. I'm looking at the core line. You can see this one line going down to the core. When you're in Planet, you'll see it more clearly. That core represented where it was based on how I was standing. So I was watching how that went off to the right of my object, then went back into the VR view and seeing, yep, okay, my core is coming off of that, lighthouse. Well, okay, what if I went to portrait orientation and I didn't do panorama? Oh boy, okay, this is really distorted if I do a single frame. I'm not loving that, but if I was that close, I wasn't really getting a full panorama either. So I'm thinking, how about this? That 15 millimeter. I have a 15 millimeter Tamron. I could try that. If I do the 15 millimeter panorama from here, Okay, it's less distorted. I can fix that with 2 rows of panorama, and it's something. Do I like the idea of the actual lighthouse breaking through the Milky Way, or should I center it underneath it? Okay, if it's breaking it, should it be on the third or centering it? And I'm like, let's try the center. I'm going to kind of visualize what it looks like here, moved my camera around, and now I'm watching to see, okay, including all the way to the right, all the way to the left, what's in there. I like that. I took a screenshot of it. Now, one thing you should know that I haven't been able to slow down the video for, but you'll have to watch it again. When you hit the square in the bottom right of this screen, you're going to go into this. Before I click on VR, you can see how I have that rectangle kind of with a convex and concave line. That is a panorama option, and I have chosen that, which is why when it goes into the view of everything, it actually shows it as this long rectangle that is Milky Way core on the right and terminating edge on the left. And if I go and make it just right, I can get the entire Milky Way from beginning on the right to the end on the left in the north. And all of it's in view. What's in view inside my location. Since I placed the purple cylinder right on top where the lighthouse is, I now have a perfect reference point for knowing, okay, if I'm over here, it's blocking my core. If I'm over here, it's in the dead center, and I like that. Take a screenshot, boom, that's what I'm going for. Okay, welcome to Owl's Head Lighthouse, and this lighthouse is a much different. You decided what lens to use, you decided how much shutter you could handle, but now, guess what? ISO gets decided for you. It's by your histogram. So you just need to add a little ISO until you get the proper histogram. This is what your histogram should look like. What you are going to want to make sure is that you have a separation between the black and the midtones of the sky. You don't want them crunched together. So if you have this peak because it's so black in your foreground like I typically do, and you see it there next to the rest of the hump, you're going to want to make sure that they get some separation. So you see the peak, you pull up your ISO until there's separation here, but then how far else do you go? Do you bring that histogram all the way to here? Do you bring the histogram to here? Where do you go? This histogram is going to go and spike and then come back down towards the midpoint. This is the midpoint right there. That midpoint of the histogram is a perfect spot for you to bring that histogram to. Here's a shot, 8 seconds, 1600 ISO. Is it exposed well? No. Is this one good? It's still crunched to the left, but I'm starting to see separation between the black and the part of the sky. That's good, and that's at 3200 ISO. Here at 5000 ISO, is it enough? No, the separation is there, but the hump is definitely not hitting me right down in that center. 6400 ISO, the hump is getting very close to the center, but it's not there yet. ISO 8000, and then I see it touching the middle. Ooh, yes, that's when I say,
man, that histogram is great.
8000 ISO is the perfect one for my lens at 8 seconds, ISO 8000. What will it be for your lens? What will it be for your shutter choice? Watch that histogram and get that shot well exposed. If you're back for day 3, thank you so much for watching. And if you click subscribe and like, I love you. Thank you so much for doing that. Keep coming. It's turned off again anyway, so hit the mic again. Repeat that. Go back out. Come back in. Hey, it's Milky Way Wednesday. Welcome in. I swear I turned that mic on. I don't know what happened there. But welcome in, everybody. Hey, I'm Aaron King with Photog Adventures, and Wednesday's the night that we celebrate Milky Way photography. We celebrate how to do it, the failures that I have gone through, the successes that you all have had, as well as going through the procedures and everything. And hopefully it's not too loud. I'm not screaming at you right now. Hey, chat, how is it going right here? Are you hearing me way too loud, or should I fix it? Nick Holt is here from Australia. Good evening from tomorrow morning. It's always a relief to know that tomorrow will come. So welcome in, everybody. Quickly, I'll say Abuko's here. Chris is here. Kathy is here. And let's see, the other Chris? Nope, that's just all that same Chris. Bill Vincent's here. I guess that's CJW right there. Angelo. And who else has chatted? No one else has chatted. And Robert's made it. Hey from the Ozarks. Hey from the Ozarks. So Sorry, everybody. I was not able to. Well, yeah, that's right. 7 o'clock hit. I maybe need to change that timer so it's not right in the middle of starting when it turns off on me. Sounds good to me. So, oh, good. The audio sounds good. Awesome. So, sorry for not giving you a better notification on tonight's episode. I basically had a lot of things to do with my kids and was not able to put the thumbnail up. And so I barely gave you a heads up for 30 minutes for those of you on my email list. But if you know, it's Wednesday. It's 7 p.m. Mountain Time. It's time for Milky Way Wednesday. And like I said, for this year, the goal is I won't be always live. I'll be at workshops or traveling, but there will be an episode that is released at 7 p.m. Wednesday. And in this goal, this New Year's resolution, it's going to include replays if at the worst, if I can't possibly get anything else up in time, I will take an old Milky Way Wednesday and replay it for you, an old classic that you never knew I had taught, and it's a whole hour plus long episode talking and teaching Milky Way photography, so there will always be something. Amen, CJW. Yes, kids first, right? And so I had them until late last night and today, and it's just, it's great to have time with them since I'm here close. But the way that the costs of the world around me are starting to squeeze me, I feel like I might not be living so close very soon. We'll see how things go. Paula's here. S. Mold is here, which is, Mark is here. And Tim is here. Hey, y'all, I'm mobile. So I can't type for a while. No worries, but welcome in, Tim. So here we go. If your camera has an invariant sensor, you can use low ISO and just bring up the signal on your processing program without adding noise. Check it out, says Bill Vincent. Yes. So here's the situation for you and your ISO invariant cameras. Now, I am going to quote my friend Alan Wallace. I am not doing this myself because my Canon 5D Mark IV right there does not have an ISO invariant sensor. But, for the fact that you have ISO invariancy, you don't have to worry so much about the exact ISO as you can push it in post and it all works really well. What Alan tends to do is shoot for a higher ISO so that he can see it on the camera as bright as he's expecting it to be, knowing that he can change either direction. So he's usually around 6400 anyhow, despite the fact that if you shot at 3200 and then just bring it up, you usually don't have much noise, if any at all. So, hi Tim, mobile typing sucks, says CJW. That's right. All right, so I'm trying a new app today. So the situation is that I have been, with all the submissions, there's so many of them that pulling them into my other app is quite a burden. It just takes me a lot of time. And I don't want to take that much time anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this new app, which is going to allow me to make the same kind of markings, just a little bit differently. And so let me connect this app to my computer. I realize I haven't put it up here on the screen, but I have 11 images tonight to go through. Hey, Keith is here. Welcome in, Keith. So with 11 images, that's still not all of the submissions so far. And so there's going to be some of you have submitted now for weeks and are not included in today's list. I apologize. The reason is that I haven't been able to just go and do like a quick checkbox on all the ones that I've already gone that are on the list. So I'm having to just grab them as I go, knowing that I haven't talked about them yet. I post them in. So what ends up happening is that there are some people who are on today's that submitted recently and you submitted weeks ago, and I apologize for that. So you'll be on next week's episode. And next week's episode will be a shorter one, most likely, when it comes to reviews. I'll have all of them covered quickly. So what that means is that next week's episode is going to be a hybrid. It's going to be an episode of me talking about your awesome images, giving reviews and saying the things that really went well, and then offering at least one bit of advice if there's anything I can add to say, hey, it could have even been better. Hey, Chris Woodruff is here, the other Chris. Awesome. Welcome in. So the thing I would do next week is review your images, and then I'm going to jump into a lesson to get us started on 2024. That's going to talk about all the different types of Milky Way photography. We're talking the different procedures that you can go through. This is a single image shot. This is a blue hour blend. This is a dual exposure panorama. This is a dual exposure single. This is one with low level lighting. This is one that's going to involve stacking, tracking, time lapse, all those different astronomical Milky Way related versions of procedures. I'm going to go through them, and I'm also going to talk about the best times of year. If any time of year is not good for them, we're going to narrow that down, and we're going to list through all of it. So we'll start off with the review of everyone's images, and then we'll go straight into a lesson to end it. So there won't be just me talking about your images. You'll also have a lesson to start off, kick off the new year. Come on, iPad, connect so that they can see you too, and we can get started on the 11 images of today's review. Boom, double checking that everything is connected there, and oh, you're right, you're on a different Wi-Fi. That's why. So I hope everyone is having a great year so far. Thanks for hanging out with me despite the fact that I gave you very little notice. So those of you who are with me tonight are definite regulars who know to come and check, and I appreciate you made it. Hey, Eric made it too. Welcome. Woo, made it here. So, yo, CJW. So Chris Woodruff is adopting the CJW tag for Chris Whiting, and he's CCW. Chris Woodruff is CCW. Okay, cool. We got some middle name initials in here now. CJW and CCW. Cisse, puede. CCW. All right, I got that in. Now I can submit this over, please. Screen mirror. You know you got it. Oh, baby. Okay, cool. So with any luck, the writing on and drawing with this app will go fluid and be perfect, and it won't have any extra challenges. Knock on every piece of wood that I have here so that I don't curse it with the live stream curse of any chance a technology could go wrong, it shall go wrong. So, oh wait, what's going on now? Oh, this app. First challenge. So this app has a way of handling the airdrop, and it shows it in a different way. And it windows it. Don't window it. Just show me the screen. Oh, good. All right, I thought I was going to have the first realization that this is looking and working terrifically, and then finding out that, oh, wonderful, this is not going to work because this app has a built-in feature where it runs on AirPlay differently. Whew, that's not the case. Let's get rolling. So we're going to start off with an image here that's going to have, I am going to embellish, I'm going to be a little selfish here and share two images from one person who's a friend of mine, and just I really love both of these images, and so it's a good way to start. So let's pull over to our screen that shows everyone's submission so that you can see Colin's information on it. I believe he had a comment. I just saw it. Nope, that was Nick Holt's comment around it, and so that's it. Oh, don't play highlights, but that's great, but don't play highlights. All right, so here we are. We're looking at this image from Colin Schweitzer, and the information that we do get from the data is that there's nothing else on here. Okay, cool. Nothing crazy except f2.8 on a Sony camera, 10-second shutter, 16 millimeter ISO 6400. Okay, sweet. All right, let's go into the actual image itself and let's draw on it. Let's get rolling. So here we go. This is an area that has a high enough cloud, or at least a typical cloud inversion style, like perhaps the Canary Islands, where you can have clouds that are hanging above the city and blocking your view of what would be above it. But since you can go up on the hills, the mountains, and get above those clouds, it turns out terrific. And this is one of those shots that I absolutely adore. And the thing that I love about it is just there is a whole different world of texture happening here. When you're dealing, okay, can I change your color while I'm on here? There you go, there's the color. Okay, cool. There's a whole different awesome world in the foreground with this light. It is the light pollution that usually plagues our images, and yet this light is its whole different entity. It's a fantastic look. It's a really strong counter color to the other colors in the frame, the warms of this orange against the cools of the other blues and whites that are in the image, the grays of the rock, the grays of the cross. It's really quite terrific. And it actually helps a lot. I mean, imagine if this same rock structure right here was going up against this background. It would be lost. It would be possibly visible. Hey, Noriko's here. Awesome. Hey, hey. So it would get lost against that darker background. It is lighter being gray, and it will stand out. But it's not going to stand out the way the silhouette does in the framing that Colin has chosen here. He's gotten close enough to the rocks to make it so that they break over the horizon of this hill in the background right here, as well as being strong against the light, polluted, distant city. That is so neat. I love it against the texture and color of the flame-looking clouds, and I love that it brings the cross. He also has this crossbar. Let me do that on a different color. So there's a different crossbar height here than the actual horizon that's back here. Now, it's minimal difference, but it's enough. My fat ink made it look like it's even less, but it is minimal and visible, which is great. I mean, Chris Whiting totally agrees with me. CJ Dub says, love the warm and cool here, the lava looking in the clouds, especially right now, thinking about the lava going in Iceland. We think about this lava. It is neat as a foreground subject. In most cases, looking at my thirds here and thinking about what kind of breaking the plane is happening, where it's like we're barely breaking the plane with this point, and everything else down below is completely in that bottom third, and then that top third is all Milky Way. Oh, come on, app. Woohoo! Okay, that didn't fight too much. And if I break the thirds in a fat middle third, you can see how we've got this center weighted image with the cross at the center, breaking the plane slightly at the bottom third, and going into the middle third where it is being mostly taken up by that Milky Way. The one thing in this app I don't have is like circles that get drawn for me that are neater than my circles. So unfortunately, that's what you're going to have to deal with. So you got the Milky Way going up and taking and breaking from the top third to the bottom third, but you've also got that balance between where this Milky Way is in the sky and the negative space that's created up here, the triangle of negative space that's created right there. There's a good balance between the positive and negative space of just sky subject alone. I really like the undo. The undo is nice and snappy, and it's not too challenging, and it also doesn't put a big circle wheel in the center, so I might like this even more. So the things that are working really great, we've mentioned, we've hung on a little bit too long, but it's just very strong. It's a good exposure of the Milky Way. Maybe even could have pushed it further with a higher ISO where he could pull out more data, or in post just pull a little bit more, since he does have a Sony camera that is ISO invariant most likely, since most of the Sonys that I come across are, just in my guessing of the gear, because I'm not a gear guy for everyone else's gear, but I know that Sonys can be. And so I look at this and the feature of the Roa Fuki up here, the great dust lanes reaching up here, the core is nice and strong. It's really in good relationship with the cross, and it is just a serene, fantastic shot. Ooh, I can zoom out to everybody. Woohoo! So this is a solid shot. What could I have done differently? What would I have even done differently? Would I have low-level lit this? Nah, I mean, not really, because it's kind of a weird out of nowhere foreground being lit up a bit, so I wouldn't do that. Would I want the Milky Way in a different position? No, not really. It's a really great balance between the background. The terrain having clouds that make the light pollution pull in are not only beneficial for color in the image that wouldn't have been there, but it's also blocking the light pollution from leaking up above the horizon and taking any of the Milky Way away. And so when you look at this, oh man, Andy from Nevada is like, hey, cloudiest winter in years. Oh, it's not going great. We're not getting tons of moisture, and we're not getting tons of sky. It's not going great here either. Too bad. Noriko, actually, you know what, Noriko, before you head out, if you head out at all during this hour, we've got this next picture that you'll remember this location, and you just almost got the same shot as Colin. So what would I say to change here? I mean, I would necessarily say it's in post-processing, that there's just something where you could do to bring out that Milky Way more, that the transition from the coloring here to the coloring here is all very similar. It looks kind of foggy and misty. I think you could have brought those out and isolated them a a little bit more and said hey to the Milky Way just slightly. But it's not broken at all. It's a terrific image, as is this one from Colin. This is in an area that's called, I call it Hoodoo Village. It's just north of Zion National Park, right there on the border. Noriko was with me there during the Nightscaper conference last year, and we had clouds blocking our Milky Way as we watched the Milky Way go from here to here to here. And finally at this angle, we got a Milky Way after patient long night. And so it's too bad. But with this night, with Colin, we actually had a really terrific night where the sky was clear from the beginning, and we ended up with extra time to start taking selfies of them. He had his camera on a tripod and another camera out here where we were standing, and he went up there with it, and we tried many different versions of his silhouette, which is so great right here because there's a lot of negative space. I mean, this triangle of negative space right here is very large with nothing else going on, and having his silhouette in here is just terrific. It's a great touch, and it's one of the few times that I really want a character in the scene, in the shot. And so if you ever want to come out to this area, just join me in a workshop in southern Utah. If you see on southern Utah that I include Hoodoo Village, then we will be here and you can get this shot as well, and I'll help you get it. It'll be fantastic. And if you need to use my camera for your prop and keep your camera back there taking the picture, that works great. So this is a good Hoodoo Village shot. The line that comes off of this silhouette of the rock and then continues out with the line of the Milky Way, I love it. I love the relationship between the two. I love that you have the light painted low-level lighting up there on the hill that's kind of drawing this terrain, but not drawing too much out here and making this hideous and distracting. It's so good that we're able to kiss it just barely on the top of this rock on the other side of this tree, so this tree stays in silhouette, and then it just lights the path up to this rock and makes that great triangle. It is something that is necessary in low-level lighting, that you have a subject like this that has a light side and a shadow side and a light side, and the relationship between them should have the good character of the rock that shows up. And if you're not getting enough of that character of the rock, you're not low-level lighting enough of the face, or you're lighting too much of the face and it's wrapping around. You don't want everything all lit. You want to have something that is going to be a shadow side and a highlight side. So when we think about this, about what we could change, I mean, maybe the Milky Way could be down a little bit more so that it's not up on top of the spot and coming off of this. That would be even cooler. The row of Fuki maybe kind of lined up right there. That's not a critical change. It's the only thing I can think of because otherwise this shot is perfect. I love it, Colin. I'm so glad you shared it, man, because I've been curious how those images turned out from that end early May that we captured the shot. All right, let's go on to the next one while we still have time. Is it already 8 o'clock? No, it's only 7:19. Thank goodness. Woohoo! All right, so this one, let's tell you who it came from. Come on out and let's go. What was the image? Over the building. Mark Moore. Yes. Hey, Mark, here's your image, man. This is terrific. Terrific. If any of you in the chat could find a comment from him on this, let me know if there is. I see there. Oh, there's one comment right there. It's Skadden House, Quartzsite, Arizona, low-level lighting. Ooh, you have done a fantastic job. Thank you, Mark. Okay, this is going to be a really terrific opportunity to show off subtle low-level lighting, the correct way to do low-level lighting. I often go even too bright, especially in the workshops, but I go a little too bright than I want to. I want the subject to stand out. Now, if I was to do the same low-level lighting that I did in Collins up here, it would be a bad idea on this building. However, it's still a good idea on this rock. This rock is very red, very orange, and the low-level lighting brought that out. If I had only a little bit there to make it visible, then it would be okay, but I think it's stronger with an extra amount of light, especially since we have a character in here that is visible now thanks to that light. But on Mark's, I didn't even think it had low-level lighting. I didn't even notice it at first. I just thought, okay. Oh, you know what? Chris Whiting's making a point down below. CJW says with lighting right there, you also like that it's lit from the side of the Milky Way core. So when the core is on this side of the rock, it's like it's brightly shining down. On Mark's, he's got the low-level lighting right here shining down. It's not something where the Milky Way's here, this is shadow side, and this is the light side. It's nice to have it almost imply that the lighting is coming and stemming from the light of that bright spot in the Milky Way. Obviously, it's not, but in Mark Moore's, it could a little bit more seem like it is. It's so subtle. It's nice. A touch of light, a little smooth whisper of light is hitting this rock face and making it have a highlight side over here and a shadow side over there, which is just a terrific, well-done job on the lighting. Because one problem with a man-made subject is when you low-level light it, plus you have a man-made subject, it almost automatically looks like car lights. Headlights, it's a distraction. When you kiss light on a rock that's not man-made, it seems like you're lighting a rock and doesn't seem like headlights right away. It can if you have the wrong color of light, or if you have too much of it, it can seem like headlights. But with this, the way that there is no light touching any of the gravel down below, it's not distracting us with a beam of light coming off of here, making a triangle as it also hits this face. None of that. It's great. In fact, I still look at that and go, it's not low-level lit. There's no way. But it actually is. He did it just enough. I really, really like that, Mark. It's turning out fantastic. So you look at this. He did a really good job of giving us very little minimal context of where the, what is anchoring in the structure into the terrain. Oh, that's what the terrain looks like? Good. We don't need any more than this much space. Great composition cut there. And then, like, if they cut it, say you did cut it up here, it just kind of feels like it's squashed to the bottom of the frame. It feels like it's claustrophobic to the bottom of the frame. You just need something there. And maybe even this much that I've cropped in could work, but maybe I think it's a little too little. I think the extra that Mark has put up here helps balance out the rest of the composition while also pushing this section of the frame up higher in the third. If I had cut it off even more, it would be even less in the third, and it would put the mountain range. I don't want to make an edit there. Put the mountain. Oh, that's what I was doing. I thought I was doing some sort of edit. Come on off. Okay, and the mountain range up here would be in the same bottom third, while in this case, it's kind of coming close to being in the second third, that middle third that is being taken up by the core and going right up into the top of the sky. So this is a great shot that's really pulling off a great composition. I think that you get a lot out of the foreground that has just one building center weighted, nothing going on over here, nothing going on over here. I don't think those are saguaro, but they might be. They're either greenish posts or they're saguaro cacti, and they're not strong enough to carry that edge of the foreground. So really what it comes down to is your nice center-weighted subject in the middle, and then the line, the organic line that is created by the horizon going up against the sky, and really great. What could you have done better? What could even have gone stronger? You have a great air glow, a very strong air glow going on in this night, and whether you want that or not, that's a personal opinion. But if you capture this with a little bit more exposure, you could probably pull off. Now, I think because of the screen, it looks like everything's a little soft. I think because of the lower resolution, it comes across that way. But there's just something a little slightly, ever so slightly underexposed and not sharp. Like if you look at the Milky Way coming from here, he's done star reduction, and it makes it look like it's even sharper than yours without star reduction. Now, I favor without star reduction, but I really like it. I think that both yours and Colin's looks on the top image from Colin, and your image, Mark, has a very similar exposure level of the core where it's just hit it. And pushing it up a little bit more might even be a little stronger and make that sky pop even more. But I think it's a really great shot. And, if the terrain offered anything else to go above the horizon on this, it would make it even more portfolio worthy. For this case, it is execution-wise portfolio worthy, but it has some more to go to be top to bottom, just something to brag about. It's got a lot here that's really strong. Cool, awesome, Mark. Let's go into another image. Okay, whose is this? Let's go into it. How am I doing on time? 7:26? not bad. Hey, it's CJW. Location is obvious. It's Mesa Arch. And an evening during Nightscaper. Okay, this is Bryce Canyon, and it is off of what looks like Inspiration Point, and it is gorgeous. I just love this place. It's so hard to feature Bryce Canyon with the Milky Way because the core typically is so far south and you're looking off to this side and away from all the neat hoodoos. So the way he pulled in a panorama here, I absolutely adore. Even Mark adores it. He's got a heart right here. So it says, an evening during Nightscaper, blue hour blend. So he did have to capture a blue hour in order to get that chasm down below. At Sunset Point, so it's just further down the trail. Because I'm looking and I'm trying to see the Wall Street, the Navajo Loop, and it's not looking quite like it, but kind of like it. Is that what I'm looking at just right here? Oh, there it is. I see it now. Yeah. We're further off of Sunset Point. Inspiration Point would be on this side. I can see this pathway goes right here and then goes down Wall Street or Navajo Loop Trail right there. Cool. So CJ Dubs, this is a terrific capture of a chasm that is typically dark and hard to pull out of nothing without low-level lighting it. And you did it with all natural light because you went for that blue hour blend. So this is one of the scenarios where it's like perfect reason and perfect motivation to do a blue hour blend. And on top of that, I apologize in advance, CJW, we're going to zoom in. But you can see how because of this terrain, the benefit of it, let me just go ahead and draw on it because that'll distract the eye. On this horizon where sky meets terrain, look how well, you didn't see me draw that, but here's the outcome of me drawing it. So you can see right here where, did you see my mouse or did I point to it with this? Like there's the trail that I was talking about going down to Navajo Loop Trail. That is switchbacks that go right down, that you're giddy and happy going down, and then coming up you're like, whew, I really went down far. It really changed elevation fast. But you look at this horizon, and it is so simple. There's no trees. There's no leaves. There's no moving bushes. There's nothing. He said he walked a couple of switchbacks down the trail. So you do enter into the trail a little bit right here, and from the trail he captured the shot before. He's not from like the parking lot or up above where the paved roads are, by the way. So I laughed at first. I was thinking he only walked a couple versus all of them, but he wasn't implying that. He was trying to tell us where he captured it because he's awesome in sharing. So this right here is a very simple, easy to blend foreground versus sky. You don't have a big challenge here with a select and mask, select and grab mask that is going to be just so hard to work with. How do you make them blend together? It's so easy. Let's pixel peep. All right, that looks absolutely perfect. It has some trees, and yet it doesn't really give away to too much more than just a slight little brighter value, that kind of sneaks in a little bit right here and gives a slight halo. Only pixel peepers will know. And then a little darkness of the further sky part was painted down into this foreground one right there. And then it looks like with this blue hour, what time you chose it made this distant foreground really good, or he used this entire distant foreground from the sky. And I wouldn't be surprised if his sky shot contained this, because you look at the transition between those two, I don't see a lot of work done, but maybe those clouds aren't wispy. Maybe those clouds are artifacts from a blend, and this is the blue hour foreground, and that sky comes right on top of it. But what is this? Oh, that might just be the transition between the sky version and the foreground version of that background. That's interesting. There's a little bit of a glow coming from the light of what is... I'm eating my thoughts as I'm trying to think of what the word is. The city, It's a city that starts with a C. And there's also another one that I can't think of that's over there that's just on the other side of this hill that is causing a tiny bit of glow right here. And it just causes a little purple haze that's coming across that, which I think is showing up in the dark one, but not in the foreground one during the blue hour. But then you continue over and you see that he has a very, very strong blend between that foreground sky and the nighttime sky with the slight halo on the trees, and I couldn't see without pixel peeping. Otherwise, the image is terrific. Now, let's talk about something that we don't typically point out and don't typically have in a frame, because you have this weird distortion that's happening on a mirror image reflecting of itself. So let's go with the yellows. We have this kind of wispy shapes kind of panning through. Then we have a bowl shape mirroring this one. We have striations happening in the rock that are kind of matching the cloud wispiness that's happening above. The thing that's incredibly impressive about the shot from CJW is that he actually captured it with some clouds going on, and it's not a single image where he just got lucky in between that gap in the clouds. He had to panorama it. He had to panorama it with the clouds, and they didn't end up blocking the glorious, glorious Milky Way that right here is obviously tracked with a star tracker and just is bright and vibrant and looking fantastic. Vanessa made it. Hey, Vanessa. Awesome. Hey, how's it going? So this area, Bryce Canyon, I don't take workshops to for a couple of reasons. One, another permit, blah, blah, blah. Two, the location is typically not great for a Milky Way, as the Milky Way moves off to the right and more south. And for the most time of the year, it's just hard to pull something out like this. But a shot like CJW's right here gets me excited about trying it more in the future, because the sunrises there are absolutely terrific. The sunsets are meh, not great. That's why I go over the Low Sea Canyon for the sunsets, and I only ever sneak into the just outside of the park area at Fairyland Point, where we can get a Milky Way that's south of us on a vertical kind of orientation like this, and then you got a hill and a bunch of hoodoos that we can light paint right there that have the essence, the taste, the flavor of Bryce Canyon without being the Bryce Canyon. So this is a fantastic image. I really just love the eyeball shape that's happening here coming across. I really love the brightness of your sky and how the wispy movement in the clouds from your panorama are actually a massive benefit to your composition. And then just, the strange lines that are being shaped and going to kind of a receding vanishing point here in the center of that terrain below us is mirroring what's happening in the sky above. And all of this is quite terrific. What would I do differently? I mean, the cloud condition is not something you can do differently. That's just the night. And I actually think it comes out and helps him in a way. I think the only thing I point out is just the haloing that's in the very pixel peeping issues on his edges. And that's all he has to fix. He fixes that and he has a perfect image. And I don't even think it's not perfect. I think that it's in perfect range, because those are pixel peeping issues that are non-existent to anyone but a pixel peeper jerk. So Chris Whiting, hey, I did cheat and add the clouds on top and the middle. Oh, no. You artist. Hey, John Deal, how's it going, man? Good to see you. Good to see your name type something to me tonight. You're saying that you added some clouds up here? Right there, Chris? You added some clouds to kind of complete the clouds on the right and the left. Good. My favorite clouds on the right and left, you didn't add or change, but you did try to fake some in the middle to not make them look like quotation marks quoting a sentence right here. Okay, that's fair enough. That's a little Aaron Bobnick-esque artistry, and it's fantastic still. I love it, and I love that you talk about it. Calling it cheating is not cheating unless you don't say that it's a composite art in like a sharing of the image. Otherwise, you're not cheating at all. Looks fantastic. Love this image. Let's move on. Okay. Ooh. There is a gradient of color here going from pinks, purples, blues, cyan, green. It's just terrific. And it's a light pollution scenario where I get to show off the benefit of light pollution sometimes. How am I doing on time? Woohoo! I'm actually doing pretty well. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. 6 more images and 25 minutes to go. Gotta be fast. Okay, this is great. Let's talk about what's great about it, but let's also share who created it. Who created this one? And the credit goes to, and it's, oh, wait, down there? No, higher up. I'm looking right over it. No, it hasn't happened yet. It's there. Tim Farmer. Woo! Hey, another Tim Farmer image. And it's liked by Abuko and Keith Kennedy. No comments on it, so I'll go right back into here. So Tim Farmer pulled this one off, and it's going to show off. Since I talked about Tim's image before, I will just talk about what's great about this, is that how light pollution benefits it. Hey, Tim. Tim's right here. Awesome. So you have something interesting. Is it an astro-modified camera, or do you have just a crazy like handling and post on your pinks? It's got to be an astro-modified camera, correct? And then Tim, tell us if this was a single image, one shot, or if you did a shot for the sky that had different settings for the foreground. And let's talk about that light pollution. In many situations, you're going to have light pollution that's just going to frustrate you to death, and you're going to go, "Oh man, it's so ruined. Light pollution back there. It started eating into the Milky Way. Nom, 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 nom. And it sucks. And you're pissed at it usually. But in this case, he has this great-looking silhouette of a tree that would just not exist in most images. Do I have any examples down below? These are all really great images. They all have really great silhouettes. So no one accidentally has a shot. Well, let's pretend like this one had a tree. Boop, 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 boop. Little happy tree right here. All right, Bob Ross. Make the tree bigger at the base, and that's a tree. So that tree ends up looking more like a... Let's change this color to a gray. How about the blue? Oh, yeah, that's a different kind of highlight. Let's do a little gray. It's too visible gray. Let's do a dark, dark, dark. So this is what the tree would look like. You know, up against the background where it begins and where it ends is only so clear and not clear at all. And I'll just cover over all the blue. So when you have a tree against the background, now this is not a very good example because it's still too bright and obvious, the tree disappears and it's gone. Tim, by the way, says that it was stacked and foreground exposure, no lighting. So he stacked the shot, has a foreground exposure that he blended with a sky exposure, and he has no lighting at all, which, yes, awesome. Okay, how many more strokes do I have to undo? Okay, cool. Let's get off of... that's mark shot. Let's go off a mark shot. So here we are. Now we have a silhouette of a tree that is actually quite gorgeous, that every little leaf and little smattering of just like everywhere the wind was a little active versus where the wind was forgiving is very visible. It's very clear exactly what's going on with this thanks to the light pollution. And I don't know what you did in your white balance. Oh, was it? Oh, it is an astromod. He says mod. Okay, it is astromodified. So that probably helped this light pollution become this kind of lime green. It's terrific. It's actually a great complementary color to the blue that comes up into the sky here. It looks and works well, especially with a green balance to a purple balance that's happening kind of in your pinks and magentas up here in your astromodified areas of the sky. I mean, the whole sky is astromodified, but the really things that pop off are the areas with, you know, the actual reds and pinks. They pop off where the infrared's not blocking them, and you can really expose for them. And man, the color scheme coming from this edge all the way down is just quite magical. I love it. And light pollution typically would be a terrible, bad sore spot and ruins your sky, and you want the Milky Way to come and have a relationship right here with this church, but it's being blocked by the light pollution. But you always would have had that tree. That tree would have always been there. You could tuck that tree behind the church, but then you change the shape, you know. Oh, let me do a little different color now. Let's go back to a fun color. Then you would change the shape of your box here. You turn it around, you change the height of that triangle to being flatter or different even more, so that as you kind of parallax, you know, right, or left around this building, depending on where you put your tripod, it's going to change the shape of that church. And I really love the balance of the face where the cross is, has a nice strong face, and it's not being cut off a lot. And then the angle of this, if I can just draw it right, is a good solid amount of context, plus the distant pavilion kind of coming off there. Or I guess the covered graves. I think it's a covered church, but it's like outdoor church. That's really interesting. So come off of that. Good. So when you're looking at this, and if you tuck the tree behind the church and you change the shape of the church by going there where you can tuck the tree, that's not a win. So you keep the tree off of the church and you keep your silhouette clear from the church. So there's no tangents, connecting the church. And that's a strong way of doing it. But then you're dealing with, oh no, I'm blocking the core with my Milky Way. Or I'm blocking the core with my tree. No, you're not. You have that light pollution taking up the Milky Way core anyway. The core is high enough that really you're completing most of the core. You only have like a little bit in here that's getting obscured by the tree / light pollution. And you're actually having a major win with the light pollution, bringing the silhouette of the tree out. And I think it's stronger because of it. Whatever that city is over here that's lighting this up, it's a massive benefit. And it really turns out well. And whatever you did in post to make this not that scary and gaudy, well done. That light could have really ruined the shot or bothered the shot, but really it comes off well and everything looks solid. Really like it. Cool church. Anyone in Tim Farmer's area that wants to take that picture should go out and do it too. It's a cool man-made subject with some light pollution where you still have a great Milky Way. But just know, if you want to pull off as much as he did, you're going to need to stack it most likely, as well as an astromod could really help out. All right, let's move on so I can save time. Woohoo! Oh man, a vertical image. Let's celebrate a vertical composition, something rare. At least seems to me. I always pull them up rarely. As I look at this frame, let's first bring in who created it. Who is the artist behind this awesome shot? Ooh, CJW. CJW is back, calling it Wizard's Hat, he says, from Devil's Garden. This is from Devil's Garden? Nah, where in Devil's Garden? Really, Escalante Devil's Garden? Or is this Devil's Garden in Arches Devil's Garden? I think it's Arches Devil's Garden, as he says, Milky Way captured from Zion. Oh no, it's a drop in Milky Way. Oh no. I'm going to rescind my love of this shot. No, here we go. From Devil's Garden, the month following Nightscapers. Drop in Milky Way, low percentage moon setting to the west. And so he actually got a setting moon over here that is lighting up this subject. And then he did a quick light paint as well. Milky Way captured from Zion Mountain Ranch cabins. And Tim Farmer's like, hey, I'm also heading to the Devil's Garden in May. I'm getting excited. Now, which Devil's Garden? Is this Arches Devil's Garden or Escalante's Devil's Garden? This kind of looks like Devil's Garden mountains in the background, but I am not familiar with this shape whatsoever, and I've walked all around it, but I've only walked around it to very similar 20 compositions the last 4 years. FYI, the church is only for funerals, and it's open back where people sit. Ah, okay. So let's go back into this shot. So this church is only open for funerals, and it's open back where people sit, and then the front is up there. Okay, cool. I love it. And he does say it's Escalante Devil's Garden, a couple 100 yards from the rest of the goods. Yeah, there's plenty of other rocks in the area, but I've never captured it. And now Chris Whiting, dude, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for not locking us out and saying this is mine, because this is a cool composition that I've had a couple nights in the last 5 years of going there where it's like, we could go to the Devil's Garden again, but I don't really want to. This is a reason to. I love this composition. I don't know exactly how the Milky Way works. I believe Chris Whiting to be a man who would be exact. Even though he used a drop-in Milky Way from another location, I'm pretty sure it's something possible from this angle, where this part of the, what looks like a cool animal statue sitting on the top here, I think the face of it would be facing this direction, the same with the Milky Way behind it. I don't think I would have to curl around a little bit to see the Milky Way off at this angle. So I believe Chris probably adjusted for it, but let me know. He had to add the Milky Way. Clouds were socking it in. Yeah, so cool. How accurate was it? This is the exact location of Milky Way. Yep, that's why the man gets a CJW. nickname because he does stick with the accurate. Awesome. Yes. Okay. I'm really glad to hear that because then we can recreate this shot without a drop in Milky Way. And I really like the look of everything as it comes up. Here is an example of breaking the planes and why it's so strong. You have your thirds. Oh, hello. Hello. Oh, I actually bumped that. Okay. Here's your thirds. Nope. Here's your thirds going across. Let me draw this correctly. Like barely cuts into that. Let me go from bottom up. That's roughly, as always, roughly the rule of thirds, as that's really wonky. But you can see how he peaks into the top. He probably can go more if you give it a different rule of third. I drew it in a way that it barely peaked over, but it peaked over pretty well. And so it breaks the plane from the lower third up to there. Let's do a different color. Breaks the plane up there from the lower third here, and then breaks the plane again up there. And it is a strong center weighted just slightly off as he kind of shares the space with this foreground subject and the Milky Way coming through. So it's a nice center weighted Milky Way plus subject of foreground being in that center point and leaving us some, contrasty negative spaces off to the right and left and bookending the great shot with all of that. Let me undo all my lines. The thing that I love about this shape, as you gotta just deal with what the terrain gives you, you end up with some things that are really complementary shapes. And I love how this comes down to a swooping right and then continues up to a swooping left. The wizard hat name, fantastic. This being a little V here, another shape there. All of this is character on the rock that's being drawn out by a well-painted low-level lighting, as well as just the shape being interesting. It's not just flat and goes up in a triangle. It's nothing as that boring, and nothing that boring at all. It's a skewed triangle with double triangles, interesting shapes on the top, and just has the strength of what an artist would do if he had only pen and paper. He would draw it this way. I love it. It's a great rock. So CJW's wizard hat will become a famous rock as I keep talking about it because I'm going to like this a lot. He says the darkest foreground is noisy. So he's talking about maybe this distant foreground. That's noisy because if you're worried about that, man, you're a worse pixel peeper than I am. And he says, I was stuck to the 30s because I forgot my external release. Oh, his millimeter. Gotcha. Did you just use a single LL? No, he did a capture for the sky and a capture for the foreground. And in this case, he actually dropped in a sky from Zion. His sky was cloudy, but he would have probably captured it all in one shot if he was there. This is not a tracked sky, is it? It doesn't look like it necessarily is. It isn't, I don't believe. And so I would say this is very much a very likely representation of what a single image low-level light shot can pull out. And John's here in Utah, so maybe John and I should go out here and try this shot, man. I know you and I have some nights that we have owed up from the past, so let's go out and do this. That'd be fun, just you and I, man. Vanessa Franken, as you outlined it, it is almost heart shape if you go rounder with ventricles. Yeah, you're right. It is very much like a rounder heart shape. So that's terrible. He goes down this way. Oh, like legit heart shape, not classic heart shape. Right. Yeah. I see what she's talking about. Accurate to the human anatomy heart shape if I go a little bit rounder at the top. Yes, I like that, Vanessa. The other thing about this being strong is that the last thing I'll say on this, and I'll move on, is that when you have a subject that is obviously going to be a prominent feature in your image, don't make the mistake of standing so far back that that prominent feature becomes only this big. Because it's not prominent anymore. You name the time, let's go. All right, John, yes. So we look at this in a scenario of being this close to it. You have it reaching all the way down here and going all the way up there. If you had it only barely taken up this much space, it's not prominent. It's only taking up half the image. When it goes beyond and has only this much space outside of it that's not the subject, it becomes prominent and it's strong. So don't make the mistake of getting too far away from a subject like this. It looks interesting still further back, I know, but it's not as strong as it could be if you just go closer on it and let that thing stretch up into your sky and stretch into your bottom part of your image. It's really great when you do that. Definitely do it. CJW, awesome image. Awesome image. Let's move on. Man-made awesomeness. This is something that a friend of mine, Clayton, Spencer Clayton, what? Wow, that's funny. Stephen Clayton. Stephen, there's a guy I just barely met whose name is Clayton Bigsby, and so now I'm getting mixed up with Stephen's last name, which is Stephen Clayton. But Stephen Clayton. It's Clayton. Dude, I'm sorry, Steve. I'm sorry for forgetting your last name because of meeting someone else and talking to them every day for the last 6 weeks. So Stephen's shot of a man-made subject like this windmill turned out really strong as one of his favorites, and it became an extra in the last minute. Now, Nick Holt gave us this image coming from Australia, as you probably already noticed by looking at how the Milky Way is. Let's see what comment he has on it. He says, this is the Woolleen Station, Western Australia in May. He tracked one tracked sky image from behind the windmill. Oh, I guess you went other side of the windmill and tracked the sky, then you came back to this side. Is that what you're implying? I think Nick's still here with us. It's early morning. It's morning. Before noon for him there. And around 8 shots light painted from the front. The air glow is amazing. There is no towns or cities. There is no towns or cities in this direction for over 3,000 kilometers. So we just had all that air glow. Look at that reddish air glow. Almost like a sandstorm glow of the sky. That is crazy. That is really gnarly. Nick, was this shot taken from the other side so you didn't have to blend in the Milky Way and paint it around? Is that what you did? Is that what you're worried about? Because I understand that. But when you stay on this side versus that side, it's the same Milky Way sky. He just went there and shot that direction out and then brought it in here. You still had to work very hard to paint them in between here, which makes me wish I would just stay on this side so I don't have to go in and try and paint the details in around all this gnarly, there's a ton of structure here and lines and triangles to try and squeeze it in. Look at the loose cabling that's going through here, or pipes, and those are all in different shapes, and you had to paint it in between that. That might have even been harder to do than just capturing the Milky Way from here on this side. So Nick, yes, you're correct. Oh my gosh, okay. At first I started talking about it as being obvious why you would, but now I'm starting to talk myself out of it as I think about selecting and masking this in. How hard was that? Was it easy as the AI is getting easier and easier for us? Because that's a good shot. It's turning out great. And I like the chocolate dark horse. Yeah. Woo! So this is the southern hemisphere sky. We see this part tipped down over here, and then it, that part of the Milky Way that's right here, we just never see in this section of the world. If you go further towards the equator, you see that plus a northern Milky Way positioning. But the southern hemisphere, they see a lot of that. And look at all of this part of the Milky Way that we never get to celebrate, that Nick's getting to celebrate. That looks awesome. The way that you low-level light this subject, it's hard to do anything more with a round cylinder like this. You got a nice shadow side and a shadow side on both sides, but you've also got something going on here to get every one of the little cross beams and structural elements to show up and be visible, especially this reflected kind of the reflected windmill blades up here in the sky, looking great. So Nick says, yes, behind for the Milky Way, then in front. The sky wasn't masked. I used PS sky replacement. Yep, boom. The AI in Photoshop worked that well. Tim Farmer has made it home. Awesomeness, Chris. Hoping to hit the Wizard's hat in May. Yeah. So that's CJW, Chris. That's CJW Wizard's hat. Let's give him some credit. So looking at this shot, what would I say you need to do differently? What could you have changed? I mean, it is really clean. It's really great. Dust lanes are popping. This is one of the few images where the dust lanes have really just shown up really, really well. Okay, that's not my car going off. I hear a car alarm going. So when you're thinking about what can be different, being a man-made subject, and that there's no light down below here, it doesn't come off as headlights. If there was a light streak on any side, it would come off as a headlight of a car, because the color on this is so blue-gray. Now, the subject is gray, so it's probably just all the best that you can deal with, and so I would say the only thing that you can do is make this more prominent in the image. You have a lot of area here. Let me go over to my iPad. You have a lot of area down below where there's just nothing going on between here. And like with the subject of the house earlier, there was some space that was necessary. Because the subject is so small, this space by ratio is actually too much. It's almost half the size. Oh man, I hope you don't hear that honking as much as I do. So right here, this space, and then I go up around the same amount of time, it's like half of your subject is this space down below, and that's too much for just giving context of the ground. If you want to anchor this subject into your frame and have some, contextual area down here to work with, you should, but I would crop it off something like maybe that, like something around here, because you get enough context for what's going on. You have enough of the spray of light coming off this way. You have enough of that happening so that you feel like you're not making it too claustrophobic, and you didn't need it to be any more down below. So you can get closer on the subject and make it more of a prominent feature in your framing and make it even stronger of an image if it was more prominent. That's what I'm thinking. All right, cool. Let's move on. Vertical. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no. I only got here. Oh, let's go. Let's go. All right, this is a very simple shot to help me with timing. So right here, let's go ahead and celebrate who created this. This is an image coming to us from are you up here? Mike Barnes, he says this is a tracked vertical image of the Milky Way taken back in September at a small desert lake in northern Washoe County near the Black Rock Desert. This is a Bortle 1 location, but there was a ranch with very bright lights. As you can see the terrain over here, that ranch is lighting it up like a moon is out right here. And to which cast the bright reflection on the hills. Yeah, that really does light up the hills, but in a good way, in a very good way. This is like the old window screen, rolling green hills plus Milky Way, and I really like it. Taken over the lake, this is with a Nikon D610 and a Rokinon 14mm using a Skywatch Star Adventure. So this Skywatch Star Adventure tracked shot had no Roafuki to celebrate, which is too bad. It's so strong because I love this vertical, and that's the big trade-off that you will have to make whenever you capture a late fall northern hemisphere Milky Way. You will have to choose, do I want a totally vertical Milky Way, or do I want the Roafuki in there and it's kind of tilted a little bit? It's like that is a trade-off, but it's well worth it to have that strong look. Let's go over here and draw some lines on it. So we've got a T shape right here with the terrain, and it's very strong being vertical like that. I like that the terrain itself got some light instead of just being dark like the bushes here and below, but I'm very impressed by the wind that night. Yes, there's some movement here and here, but for the most part, this right here is perfectly still and just looks great. I mean, there's just like this tiny single blade that moved, it seems like, during the exposure, and that being not fuzzy made this image so much better. If the wind was moving those reeds, those grasses, those flower stems, if these were moving around as much as these were and the whole thing was just a blur of motion, it would not be as strong. The fact that both are included is great and fine, because back here it's just like the same lines just drawn on top of each other, and this is just a little bit more spread out. And so like the fact that those get a little bit of motion, it's not a problem. But where we had some actual space, some space to really take in the plant itself, that's down here in the bottom right corner, we actually have stillness and not motion, which really makes it stronger. And looking at the large image on Google, the sky looks great. Love the color balance. Oh yeah, because I'm cutting off the top part here as I'm zoomed in a little bit. But like looking at the large image, meaning that Chris Whiting went in and he clicked on this and saw it big on his screen, he's saying that the sky looks great and I love the color balance. I do too. This has that shared love that I have, a little bit of blue, but also very natural. It's not Roger Clark natural, but it's definitely there with the nice, strong, not too one color the other option. And so when I look at this and I see how strong it is, this was a big thing to me, that this was not in motion, as well as it's a different height that gives a different view of the nice smooth icy looking, kind of smooth buttery looking lake as it has a long exposure making those lines out. And then the terrain is just, I mean, there's something kind of wispy and atmospheric about these distant hills. I like them. It'd be great if there was something else that could have come in the shot and been higher, but there's nothing you can do about that. It's a great dark location, and it looks really good, and the only thing I could say that you could have done better is an easy fix in your post as you just kind of go in and pixel peep your long shot here, because your long exposure to the foreground had some stars that star trailed, and the star trails are starting to pop in a little bit at the halo that's happening around this. So fix your line around that section of the grass, it'll get rid of those stars, and wherever it can't get rid of those stars and you want to keep maybe the haloing color, that's okay. The haloing color is not terribly distracting. It can be when you pay attention to it, but it really is not initially. But the lines are definitely distracting. You can fix it there. Go get rid of those lines by cloning, if nothing else. All right, cool. Final image. 1, 2, 3. I wanted to finish on this image. One more selfie. We'll add these two to next week. So we'll come back to Joshua Tree and whatever location this is for next week, and we'll end it here. This is the kind of Milky Way that many of you can capture who have never, ever done it before. Like I said this before on another image last week, this is not a negative. Oh, Nevada Hunter says, 83 says, thanks, Aaron, I appreciate it. You bet, you bet. This is not something that is a derogatory comment. When I say that anyone can capture it, oh, good, it's Tim Farmer. He has other images that are brilliant, so we won't take this personally. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So the reason why I say this is that it's a good quality image that doesn't require too much. Now, he just said he'd take a panel of this, which makes sense because you have a little bit of bend right here that panel would cause. But other than that, I think it's a simple image that you can pull off and a very fun one that you can go in and do. And the work that Tim did to add himself in after the panel, I'm sure was a little bit interesting. He goes, this is actually a panel, which looks great, but I uploaded this square as a square crop. So he continues off to the left more, huh? Cool. It's R5, ISO 5000, and it's stacked. Yes, I like it. I like it a lot. I wanted to end on this because of the mood of it, the reflection of it, just to talk about reflections a little bit, as well as talk about just knowing that if you are brand new to Milky Way photography, you can pull this off. And it's Pyramid Lake. Okay, cool. That's the area that he was at. Nevada Hunter was at Pyramid Lake. This is within anyone's skill set who can use their camera, get the right exposure, get the panel done, boom. Chris Whiting says, there are times that I like the slight bend that the panel creates. Absolutely. That bend that happens in there can be great in part of the composition. When you think about my negative, or mine, Tim's negative space that's happening right here, and the negative space that's coming underneath here, now, the negative space is taken over by a spray of light, so he helps that. The clouds help it not be totally negative, so there's something there in that negative triangle. But the negative space there, the shape of this gap, this space between the top and this part, because it bends so sharply over, is good. And that panorama helps create that. The thing I want those of you who are brand new beginners to think about is the proper focus, the proper exposure, making sure your shutter is not going to cause star trails, making sure that your focus is great and your lens focal length is chosen based off a coma aberration and quality of light bucket, which means the biggest open large aperture like 1.4 to 2.8, something in that range is brilliant. 2.8 is the compromise best. Like most lenses that can do it work out great at 2.8, but it's even better the bigger you can go. 2, 1.8, 1.4, even higher than 1.4. That'd be even more terrific for you to get a much stronger shot. Easier time in post when you have a bigger light bucket. But the thing about this shot is that you quickly capture a great exposure, great shutter, boom, 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 panel this in. If you're Tim and you want to get yourself in the shot, you capture another shot where you go out there on a time lapse and you walk out to the edge and you settle in, put your torch light of your headlamp looking up in the sky as if you're looking right at the Milky Way core and taking in the moment. This is the kind of memorabilia, souvenir capture that you can have of a location and remember it and be like, oh man, I love that. I love that night. Look at the mist coming off of the lake. Look at the reflection in the water. It was so still that night. I had a good reflection of the stars and then the capture of the sky. Ah, what a night. What a great night. And I love this kind of shot. and it's so possible for anyone with a brand new skill because you get that exposure and shutter correct, meaning that you just got your focus right and you got your ISO up high enough that you're not going too far to the left on the histogram, and you have a nice spread out histogram towards the middle, and you got that foot of the histogram touching. I'll teach you that in the future if you're hanging out with me more. That kind of exposure is going to get this shot. Tim does not have a shot in here that needs a star tracker. It does not need anything more gear, better this, blah, blah, blah. You can capture this and get this kind of exposure. And in the light pollution that's happening over here, that's cutting into our Milky Way, it's not ruining it. It's just making it a little bit obscured. And a lot of shots, depending on where you live, are going to be like this kind of sky like we saw last week. And so celebrate what is working in your image. And when you have a chance for a quick, for a lake or a water structure feature that is going to actually be still enough for reflection, include as much of it as you can. I mean, Tim has it all in the bottom third as reflective Milky Way. And you can see how the dots pop off. The dots pop off more because the higher magnitude stars will show up brighter in a reflection. They don't show up as much in the sky, but they really stand out in the reflection, and the lower magnitude stars just don't get reflected. And so it really draws like constellations out in the reflection. It draws planets out in the reflection. And it looks so good. If you get a chance to have one of those nights, do it, go out and grab it, no matter how cold or scary it might be. Go for it. What would I do differently, Tim, on this image? I don't know. I mean, it'd be great if the sky could fight through the mistiness of it, the light pollution of it, and have even more capture on the Milky Way, but you stacked it, you you panorama capture so that you have panorama and a stack that gives you more resolution and more detail, and just it takes what could be distracting as I'm pixel peeping the noise or the sky's looking this way or the focus isn't as perfect. In a panorama, it just disappears. It just, you don't notice it as much, and it comes off really strong. What would I do differently? I mean, there's definitely space up here that you can trade off for more reflection, if that's even possible. In my brain, I think a little bit, what is happening on the shoreline down below, and how much more could you have included and brought this up a little higher, but not dead center, not middle lining it. You know, I don't know if I'd change too much. Knowing the conditions of the area, the situation that you have, I don't know what I would change, except maybe just trying it again. I don't know. Because in this situation, in this kind of composition, there's not much else to do. And the Milky Way being lower in the sky can maybe be the only thing that can change, but it's not necessary. And the fact that you added yourself in there is quite great. While this is not like a portfolio image like his other shots have been, this is a great image. And there's not much else I can say to make it better. It's just the conditions of this location. He probably got the best version of a shot from this location that he can get. I mean, put some ducks in the frame. I mean, why aren't there any ducks or some interesting animals here? I mean, what else can I say? What else can I really critique? I think it's really great. Awesome. So, Panorama. I used to listen to that band, Panorama. Yeah, I get that. Oh, man. New word, Panorama. Get a panorama going. So like I've said, if you already have done it, awesome. I haven't checked it, but this email right there, milkywaywednesday@gmail.com. If you have any questions of a procedure, a skill set, a tip that you would like me to emphasize in a Milky Way Wednesday, or just a simple situation that you want to ask a question about, I did this, and this, Aaron, and this happened. What could I do differently? Ask it in this email, and I will feature it on a Milky Way Wednesday episode. My seat has progressively sunk. Whoops, sorry. My seat has progressively sunk lower and lower and lower during the episode. LOL ducks. Yeah, man, where's your ducks? Add your ducks. You don't even care about your photography, man. So the scenario, blah, blah, blah. I was talking about my seat, and then I was talking about how we're ending it. I guess I lost track of my train of thought. So thanks for hanging out with me on Milky Way Wednesday. We will finish up those other two images that I didn't get to tonight, plus the rest, and then at the time I have left after that, I will teach the procedures of typical Milky Way photography, all the ones that you should know, and the timing of the year that are best for them. And if there's ever a time that's not good for them, we'll mention it there, so you have a quick tip sheet to remind yourself, these are my options. Should I single image it? Should I dual exposure it? Should I do this? Should I chart track? Should I stack it? Should I time lapse? Why and where can I do these things and make these decisions? I'll have it on a one sheet for you, make it easy for you. So maybe decoys would sit still. Yeah, you know, they wouldn't ruin your reflection. You put some decoys out there. That's an interesting thought. So Reno Sparks out there? Yeah, is that Reno? Is that the light from Reno? He's curious. So thanks so much for hanging out with me. Thanks for being here as always. I am Aaron King with Photog Adventures, and I appreciate you coming on Milky Way Wednesday. We'll be back next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and I'll see you then. Have a good one. I'm going to go have some dinner. Woohoo!